Hello, I'm Roger, and welcome to Meditation, Mindfulness in Nature. There are many ways to do mindfulness, and today we're out in this beautiful setting. There's a cornfield behind me and some woodland, and we're going to do mindfulness with an orange wildflower and a lavender or purple colored wildflower. The definition of mindfulness that I like to use is mindfulness is bringing your awareness or your attention to your breath, your emotions, your thoughts, your senses, and your surroundings. Also bringing attention to your judgments and staying in the present moment, letting the moment that just passed go on and be in the next present moment. Today, working with wildflowers, we're going to be really focusing on our senses. I may mention some thoughts or emotions through the process, but mainly this is focusing on our senses. So we're going to start with this orange daylily, which I think is just a really beautiful and intense colors, really lots of interesting gradation of oranges and yellows. And a little bit of green stem. So when we explore something with our senses, I'm not looking at this as a botanist. I'm not looking at this as a gardener. I'm looking at this to just explore it with my senses, and I'm really looking to observe, and I'm just looking for details and to get immersed in looking at the details of this flower. So we usually start with sight, and if you would like to do this with me, feel free to pause the video, go get a couple flowers, or you could get any objects in your house, whether it's a pen or a spoon or a couple pieces of paper. Junk mail is a really good one to use. Any object, you can do mindfulness with any object. So feel free to pause this and go get them if you want to. Or the next time you're out in nature, remember this video and you can do it with a couple wildflowers that you find. So starting with this orange daylily, we're just going to start to look at it, or I'm going to start to look at it. And I'm going to describe to you what I'm seeing, and you'll see that I'm looking to just look at the details. I'm not going to talk like a gardener or a botanist. So we'll start at the back side. There is the stem. It goes up to the petals. And I can see, of course, the orange is so obvious with this, the orange and yellow. But there's a little bit of green on the outer petals. And there's just a lot of different shades. And I can see vertical lines or lines going up the petals. Some of the petals curl back around and I can see that orange. The colors of orange, there's orange and yellow. And I just take that in. And then I can also, one thing, if you're working with a plant or some other things, but particularly plants, leaves and flowers, birds are calling, which is cool. That's why I'm out here. So if you hold it up to the light, you sometimes can see through or see into, you see the light through it, and it shows you more veins and more colors in the plant material. So one of the things I like about this is just that neck or that throat inside the flower is just such an intense yellow. And it's just such a beautiful, strong contrast to the oranges. And as I look at this side now, I do see the oranges. I see the curl in the shape of the petals. I see that there's a line that kind of runs up the center that's light colored, cream going towards white. That yellow center really catches my attention. And right before it gets to the center, there's kind of a rust color or a deeper orange. There's the center parts of the flower, which are the reproductive parts, and they are long and just long and slender. They're pretty bright orangish yellow. We'll see them more in a minute when I do some other stuff with this. You see there's a little bit of green down inside there. And so I just take my time looking at the details. And you notice I'm even though I'm saying some plant parts, I'm really looking at just the details of what I see. And then once we've explored it, as long as we want to. Then we can start to explore with touch. I'm holding the stem, and what I notice, the stem is really quite stiff. It's green and slowly lightens the green, but I can feel the stiffness of the stem. And then as I get up to the petals, they're not as rigid. They are, and the farther I go out on the petal, the softer they are. The curl, I can kind of feel that there's kind of there's this actually has an extra petal, but there's three petals that are really similar, and then the other three are similar, but there's two kinds of petals here. And the one is softer and more flexible, the other's more rigid. I can feel the edges. I can still feel them with my finger, but if I actually try to just touch the edge, it's so soft that I almost don't feel it. And I can feel on the back side, I can feel the lines, the ridges that go up this flower. I can feel the firmness of that curl as I push against it. Now this flower, and I can feel these center parts, they feel like slender cylinders that are a little bit rubbery feeling, and they're flexible. And so we've done sight, we've done touch. I can also touch this on the back of my hand. It's a little bit tickly. In my arm, it moves the hairs and it's a little tickly. The stem is a little pokey. I mean, I'm not doing it hard. It could be scratchy if I were to do it harder. I can explore, I can touch it on my face. If you're doing a flower, don't touch the reproductive parts, the inside sticky out parts on your face. They often will have pollen. And I mean, if you want pollen on your face, you might get a little face makeup from the flower, but just something to be aware of. I can touch those and I can feel the pollen, which feels like really, really fine sand on my fingers. Some flowers, this gives just a little bit of yellow. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. Little yellow orange. Pollen can be a very strong stain, so just be aware of that. And so then I explore it with touch. If I wiggle it, it makes just a little bit of noise, but not very much noise. A smell. It doesn't have a strong floral smell. It has a mild kind of plant smell, maybe not quite like peas or green bean, but kind of that kind of what I call green plant smell. And I'm not going to taste it. So the other flower, we're going to come back to that in a minute. The other flower I wanted to work with is this beautiful lavender flower. And you can see it has these beautiful lavender, different flowers. And I'll pick one of them off. And I can pay attention to feeling that. So this flower, you can see the front, and here's kind of the back, the stem. I noticed something. I wanted to make sure it wasn't a bug. It's just a dying flower part that's brown in there. So already I can smell this I haven't even gotten to smell, and already I know this plant has a strong, pleasant aroma, and I already can smell it. So, but I first want to start with looking at it. So obviously these lavender, each of these is an individual flower. Not that that matters from this, but it's just, there's one little flower. But I noticed these are kind of, what words would I use? They're kind of frilly. If I look at the flowers, they're lavender, there's a little bit of white. There's also a little bitty, the little bitty sticky out parts from the flower. There's a little white tip. It goes back. There's a little cylinder down in, and then this little kind of fluted lip or tongue that comes off of each flower. And then there's this kind of button center. I noticed that. And here's that little, it's a dead flower part that was in there that I wanted to make sure wasn't a bug. And so I just noticed that, and we'll come back to touching. I'm doing it. The back has some different leaves. They're a little bit lighter green than the regular leaves. The stem starts out green, but has definitely some purple or burgundy on it. I noticed that. The leaves have a little bit of white on them, and I can notice their shape. They're leaf shaped. They're thicker at the base, and they narrow to a little tip. And they come off. Leaves come off across from each other. These two are hanging down. These two are sticking more out. The back of the leaves is a different color green than the front or the top of the leaves. And so that's some of looking at this. And then I can start to touch it. These little flower parts up here, they are so soft that I barely know I'm touching them. Now, if I rub them on the back of my hand, I can feel that. The skin on the back of our hand is often more sensitive than on our fingertips because we use our fingertips so much. So I rub those on the back of my hand. I can feel it's really soft, it's tickly, and they'll move the hairs on my arm. I can also touch those on my face, and I feel that more. On my lip, my nose would tickle and probably make me sneeze, and I can smell it even without trying. So I can touch those flowers. I can touch this inside part. It's definitely stiffer. It feels, how do we describe things? It feels kind of like a cushion. It's a little bit squishy. I can feel there's little individual, I guess if I thought about it, they must be parts that are sticking up because it feels, there's some texture to it. These leaves on the back, they're really smooth. They're really smooth. It feels nice. And the stem is quite stiff. These leaves are also pretty smooth. Not as smooth as the ones at the back of the flower. I can feel the stem. The stem has some squareness to it. It has kind of solid sides that I can feel. And if I roll it in my fingers, I can feel it kind of hit those edges and then get to a flat part again. You can see kind of as I twirl it, it stops at places. And the stem is really stiff. I can then see, does it make any noise? This really doesn't make any noise. It's so soft. And the smelling it, as I said, this plant has a strong aroma. It's in the mint family, but it's really a strong mint. And so it's somewhat between mint and bergamot. Or I'm sorry, it is bergamot. It's kind of a smell between like a strong mint and almost like oregano. There's a car coming by. We'll just let it pass. I'll talk a little louder. Hopefully they don't stop. But if they do, I'll just say hi. Let me just take a drink. And so smelling it, yeah, it has this, they're slowing down, which is nice. Has a little bit of plant, here they come. I'll just stop for a second. They're gonna ask what I'm doing. Hello. Enjoying the scenery and doing a little video about being in nature.
Okay, got a lot of nature out here.
There's beautiful nature and no mosquitoes,
Right,
or few.
You came in the right time. A week ago you would have been all over.
Exactly, yes.
Enjoy.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye. So, little just pleasant hello there. And so back to smelling it. Yeah, it's an interesting smell. It's a smell. It's not exactly like rosemary or thyme or lavender, but it has some qualities similar to those. So it's kind of it's definitely a relaxing, calming smell. The leaves don't smell so much right now. So now I'm going to come back to that, but I'm going to go back to the daylily. So we've done looking, touching, listening, smelling. We didn't taste. Oh, this one. Oh, I forgot. I can taste this one. And you can eat the flowers of this. You also can eat the leaves. I'm just going to taste a couple of these flowers. And I know, but I'll just taste it. It is intense. It is, if you like Altoids, you would probably like this flower. Its name is Bergamot, Monarda, and Bee Balm. It has 3 names. And there's another vehicle coming. They're so small, I kind of have to move my tongue to chew them with my teeth. But definitely, like I said, if you like Altoids, you would probably like this. It's a strong, strong mint that has a little bit of burning to it. Not painful, but just awareness. It's not gentle, and there's no sugar. But I can taste it, and I'm just going to wait a minute for this vehicle to go by. The vehicle's passed. I chewed up those little flower parts. I can still taste it in my mouth. It remains. But now to go back to the daylily, another piece of how we can do with this. So if you're at home, if you have a piece of junk mail, if you don't have flowers, if you have a piece of junk mail, you can do this next piece with junk mail. So another part of touching is we actually can, and I'll be talking to you through this, but if you do this on your own, you can be really quiet, and this can be very meditative. So we're going to actually kind of rip this flower apart. And I'm out in nature, so I'm just going to drop the pieces as I rip them. And I can pay attention to the feel of them when I rip them. There's different strengths. Like I said, some petals are more rigid, and the farther I get down in the flower, they're more rigid. I can watch while I rip them and feel it. I also can hear them ripping. There, and you might even be able to hear that. And they come off different ways. And I can just be aware of that. And one of the fun things that I can share is the more that I rip this, the more that I can see inside. And now you can see the sticky up parts as well as the inside bright yellow orange. And I'm just going to rip this apart. As I said, you can do this in as small a pieces as you want. And of course, the smaller pieces, the more it keeps your focus. But I'm just going to do it in the interest of time. I'm going to do it fairly quickly. Now, but it's really quite beautiful. And them falling on the ground is really pretty. I'll show you that at the end. Now you really can see that center parts. And I'm going to be careful to not get a lot of pollen on me. Ooh, they're a little squishy. And there, they have a little more texture. And so I can drop that. And you can see I have a little orange on my fingers from doing that. Now I can take this one and drop these as well, and I can pull these out. I mean, now that we're going to do it, but I just thought of like, he loves me not. But that's touching onto a memory, which is a thought, and it's just being aware of the thought. So, yep, that reminded me of something from childhood. I pulled those flowers out. Now you can see more of that kind of cushion center. I can pull these leaves off the back. I can do them. And it's always interesting taking a plant apart because it's holding itself together. There's how it's connected, and if a leaf rips easily or if a leaf rips difficult and kind of holds together. Now, the more that I rip this up, the more that smell will come out. And I could have squished some of those flowers, and that would have released more of the smell. Yeah, this is interesting. This smells different than the flowers. This center, which will become the seed pod. But it smells more green. I can take this leaf, and I can rip it. And then if I squish it in my fingers, it'll really release the oils. And I get the smell of the plant. And I can pull that head apart, can pull the leaves off and rip them. I can see a lot of times stems won't break very easily. You can tell it's strong connective tissue to support the plant. And I have a couple more just for fun. I'll just pull a few more of these petals off. Because it's kind of fun to do, and it's going to be really pretty. Because you can't see it yet, but the orange and the yellow, the orange and this lavender are really beautiful together. So you can see how you could do this really slowly. And if you had junk mail, you could be ripping up a piece of junk mail right now. So that is a mindfulness practice, mindfulness using nature, mindfulness in nature, mindfulness with nature, of using two wildflowers, using our senses. And I'm sure this has been over 10 minutes. I'm not sure how long this has been. But see how this is a meditative practice. We're definitely focused. And yet we're using an object, or a couple objects, and really can bring our attention and our awareness to those and to our senses in great detail, in more detail than we've probably ever looked at these flowers before. I've done this before, so I've looked at them, but it's really this kind of focus. And then you can also pay attention to what thoughts come and go, or if you have emotions. I didn't have emotions. Some people might be sad taking a flower apart. There's lots of these flowers, and you may or may not choose to take it apart. And you can just be aware that, like, you know what? I don't want to tear a flower apart, or because I want to save it in my vase, or you're out in nature and you can take it apart. So it's interesting to just be aware of also what emotions and what thoughts do we have while we do this. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching this video. I hope this helps you learn more ways to do mindfulness. And to end this video, I'm just going to bring the camera down to look at this little collage of what I've ripped up. Thank you and take care.